Hey guys, welcome to stream. Um, oh hey, bits right off the bat. Thanks, Space Cactus. I really do appreciate all the bits we can get. And now you're technically number one for the month, so enjoy that. At least until somebody beats you. Um, but anyways, welcome back to the stream, guys. Thanks. That's really cool that you caught a low tad shads. Those are obviously my favorite. Yeah, a snipe. You're always here to snipe me. Um, and Yash, that's fine if you miss the first few classes. Things happen in life. Just be sure to catch up. And because if you haven't caught up yet, you're probably not going to understand what we're doing today. But I can't really make an exception and just go over everything again. I'd rather you just watch the video if that happens. But for those of you who are arriving, especially anyone who happens to be new, welcome to my JavaScript class. I'm Hoenn Hero. I'm a developer on Pokemon Showdown. I'm a Pokemon Battle Simulator. And one thing I constantly get from people is that they just don't understand how programming works at all, or development, or anything like that. So I originally started this channel to just stream myself programming, give people a better look into all the how much time it takes to do all this stuff, and give them a better look and understanding. So yeah, and now I'm pushing to teach people JavaScript because that's something that's been popularly requested and I've planned for quite a while. And this is our third day. If you have no prior experience, this is probably a class for you. Yeah, we stream. I stream. The goal is to stream every night except potentially Monday nights. That one's a big if. Um, and at 6 o'clock Eastern Time till 8 o'clock Eastern Time for a 2-hour session a day, and go through our class plan. All the old videos can be found on Twitch, and there is a YouTube playlist if for when these do expire. Um, and people are telling me I'm Mirby in disguise. He's hiding a giant red and white afro behind the camera. Well, I may not be Mirby in disguise, or wait, am I? I don't know. Oh, I can't even hear it. That might be too loud. Tell me if you guys can't hear me over the music. Do too, easy clap. This is the one thing I remember from Java. Well, Yash, you shouldn't have too much trouble picking it up then, because the syntax is basically the same. There's music and you can't hear it. Okay, right, I'm muted. Hold on. There we go. So, is this easy to hear me, or is it too much, too little? Also say hi, Fart.
Hi, Fart.
I didn't mean that exactly. Yeah, tell me if that's too loud or too quiet, so I could turn it up or down. Oh, Star's in here too? That was Fart, not Star. Yash, if you need to download anything for the class, it's in the welcome channel. That has all the information you need. It'll tell you your minimum operating system requirements, links to NodeJS, Git, go to GitHub, etc. Alright, cool. In that case, we'll go ahead and get ready to get started here. But before we start, I do want to, I'll just shift on into our actual thing instead of just sitting on the base. Yeah, Visual Studio Code is what I recommend. You don't have to use it though. So yesterday I gave you guys an assignment. Day 2. I asked you guys to do some basic work involving math and strings. Basically, we went over basic data types yesterday. Did strings, numbers, booleans, variables. Pretty basic stuff. All this is Node.js based, not browser based, so we are using modern features here for anyone wondering. And I've put up a solution for you guys to look at, and I will go over one thing that I saw in a lot of people who submitted their assignments. And if you haven't done this assignment yet, feel free to do it anyways, even though I'm kind of giving you the answer now, because this is literally my solution that I wrote up in 2 minutes. The first question was use JavaScript to solve the following math questions and print the solution to the terminal in the format the solution for question is answer here, period. Don't forget the period. And then there's a bunch of math questions listed. Um, so one thing I saw a lot of people mess up on is attention to detail. That's critically important when you're programming. Like, let's say this was an assignment you had, or something similar to this was an assignment you had for an open source project you were contributing to, or boss, or whatever. And, like, it's an optional assignment, Yash, but it's really there to help you solidify what you learned. Because, honestly, with programming, you're not going to get it if you don't actually write code. So that's why I assigned them. It's not too difficult. This was literally something that took me 2 minutes to do. For newer people, it might take 10, 20 minutes, but it's not going to kill you. Attention to detail. So, like, I don't mind too much if you make changes to, like, the format I asked for, the solution for, etc. Though I will start to be more detailed, and I do point that out when it's wrong. My primary thing was make sure you get the syntax right. So some of you forgot semicolons, some of you made some more critical mistakes, which I'll go over in a second. But generally, attention to detail, like make sure it's in the correct format, don't forget the period, whatnot. Try to do that because it's a good practice. You can also, if you want to be creative afterwards, feel free to stick your own answers in as well. Make your own stuff up and add it afterwards and such. I'm completely fine with that. Especially if you have to pay attention to details that you create yourself. That's great. Does JS Creator work for this class? I've never actually used JS Creator myself. I'm assuming, is that like a standard code editor, or is it something completely different, kind of like, I don't know, what's it called, Scratch? I used that years ago for a little while, and I remember it because that was something I took, you know, my starting inspiration for wanting to code, one of them, Showdown being the main one. But I have no idea what it is, so I can't say if it'll work for the class or not. But the other critical thing people screwed up was some of these, the quantity of. So like I said, the quantity of 12 minus 2 divided by 5. Now, in theory, you might not know what exactly that means, but like I know at least a couple people I saw, they understood what it means, but still messed it up. Like one person did parentheses around this one here when they shouldn't have, and no parentheses here. That messes with your order of operations because basic math, division and multiplication comes before addition and subtraction. So if you want to, like, this last one's an example of the difference between them, that you'll get different answers. In this case, it does 4 divided by 6 and then does the addition and subtraction. In this case, it does these first because they're in parentheses. So be sure to pay attention to that when appropriate, or your answer will change, and that's the hard part. Yeah, Scratch is fun to mess around with sometimes. I don't do it so much anymore because I use actual code now. You can ignore this line here. This line here is mostly just to make it look cleaner for when I show you guys the solution on console. It basically adds a bunch of empty lines, 3 of them to be exact. That's not important, and I don't expect that in your answers. This one, I wanted it like this, but in hindsight, it wasn't clear, so I also accepted anyone who just did each individual question of the 4 questions with a different X value. So I apologize for being unclear there, and I will accept the other version. Create a variable called x and solve the following math equations with x set to 3 different numbers of your choosing. When you change x's value, be sure to log that x's value changed and what it changed to in the console. Log the answers in the same way you did in the last question. So, and then the questions were x plus 7 and so forth. So, for example, over here, we declared x as a variable. Log the value of x is x. The solution for x plus 7 is x plus 7, and so forth, and did the same thing. I could literally copy paste these 4 lines and 5 lines and just change the value of x each time. I did minus 78 and 115 as well because that's what I felt like. But yeah, does anyone have any questions on yesterday's assignment? And for those you don't know, I take questions on Discord. I take in the Discord channel, and I can link it if you don't need. I will link that now, and I can't spell. There we
We
go.
know.
I take questions there. In the general channels, there's ones for students that I prefer to use, but if not, you don't have that role or whatever, you can use the regular one. And I also take questions in chat here. Or PM. Okay, I have a question here. Let's see, what's your question, Yash? Feel free to type. I'll take it wherever. We'll give them a moment to answer. Type that out. And then today's lesson will be on statements and loops. Alright. It doesn't pertain to... Okay, doesn't pertain to the assignment. I'm assuming it pertains to the course in some way. What do I do when I set up NodeJS? You'll have to be more specific than that, Yash. There's a lot of things you could do with Node.js. Oh, you're asking about the install. Thank you for the follow, Nakul. Okay, I'm bad at pronouncing names. Nakul. Ah, God.
Inoculo.
Yes, that's what it is. Ah, Nakulo. Yes, I'll turn the music down and try to turn myself up a bit. Let me take care of that. Shh, give me a moment. And I will look at your thing in a sec, Yash. If they can't set up Node.js, have them use an online compiler like that. I don't think it's so much they can't, they're just confused about the setup. I just do defaults for Node.js, actually. I didn't do anything special, like I didn't customize it or anything. It's kind of like a program, so like if you want me to look at each of the steps, you could send me screenshots of them all. That one I would just do all the default because you want your npm package manager, online documentation shortcuts, you want your runtime, and you definitely want to add it to path. Okay, so another question here. When I do the thing, it doesn't highlight in blue and reads as normal text. Okay, so two things. So like Space Cactus asked, are you using backticks? You used single quotes. It needs to be backticks. Second, you're using parentheses based on what I've seen. You need to use curly braces. So it would be like this that I'm typing into chat now. Backtick, curly brace, etc. So simple enough. I've gotten a lot of questions about that, and it's because people can't see, apparently, and I apologize for that. I can definitely post something about clarification on that in Discord where it'll be very visible and easy to see for everyone. And I wanted to poke with my settings to make things more clear. However, me doing that is potentially not the best of ideas just because I might screw something up and cause stream to overload on my computer. So not right this second. I don't think I can improve our quality here anymore right now. But yeah, so I'm going to assume that's the end of questions. If you do have more, please send them to me and I'll be happy to answer them. But yeah, so I'm going to go ahead and we're going to head right into our thing. So we're going to have statements and loops today. Lots of fun because we're actually going to get started on doing some things and having the computer make decisions based on values and doing things repeatedly. Still not a lot we can do overall. When we get through objects and functions, then you really have your core tools with you and you can start doing a lot. So we're getting closer to that point where you guys will be really self-sustaining. And it's, excuse me, really not a huge amount of tools. But yeah, so today we're going to do if statements, switch statements, for loops, do while loops, conditional operator, aka ternary operators, and a few projects, which I just need to change that to assignments. And yes, they have already been set up. I did them this morning. They should be fun. Do you use Vim or Emacs? Me? I actually use VS Code as an editor for Git, if that's what you mean. Like, I have that set up in Git. That was an option during install, and I have it looked in Git config, so I could tell someone else how to change it without using reinstalling. But yeah. I don't see any other questions, so I'm going to keep going. So our first thing of the day is an if statement. Very important and versatile part of programming. More or less, the idea of an if statement is that you get to you tell the computer, if this is true, perform this action. So that's the idea of it, and that's once again where Booleans come in. And thank you guys for 20 viewers. It's actually pretty close to a record. That's pretty good so far. Thanks for watching, everyone. Um, but back to if statements. So yesterday we talked about Booleans. Now they're going to have some sort of use. Like I said, everything can be simplified down to a Boolean. It's either truthy or falsy. Most everything evaluates to a true value except 6 things in JavaScript. Those 6 things are the false keyword, which should be obvious, it's literally the Boolean false. Undefined, null, which is basically undefined, but you have to set your variable or whatever to null or specifically use it rather than just, you know, like undefined. If you don't define a value, it's there. An empty string, no spaces or anything, just completely empty. The number 0, and one other that I actually just can't remember. Let me look that up.
Not a number.
Right, not a number, nan. That's the last one. So all of those will evaluate to false if you put an if statement and just check that, or check a variable that contains that. Otherwise, it would evaluate to true, and the statement would run. So there are other things you could do with it, but right now we're just going to do the absolute basics of checking a value and then expand into those. We got quite a number of things to look into with if statements like you see here. So I'm going to switch to my editor here and show you guys some information. But before we do that, I'm going to quickly go over what a code block is. A block of code, basically. Yeah, it actually feels pretty weird for an empty array or object to evaluate to true or function or whatever, but they do evaluate to true in JavaScript. So if you want to check if an array is empty, you would want to use array.length, which is a little advanced, but we'll get to that later. We're way ahead of ourselves at that point. Okay, so code blocks in JavaScript. Most things in JavaScript will be enclosed in code blocks. We've mostly just been writing all of our code, like, I don't need that open, like, all of our code just on the basic, no code blocks, all just like this. With a code block, it's usually involved with an if statement, a loop, a function, something. So it's code surrounded in curly braces, and it's usually something here, and then to signify information about the code block, like if it should be run, it's a loop, it should be run multiple times, it's a function, it should be run when called, it's an object, this is its data, but that's the idea of it. When you're inside a function, there's a change in indenting rules. I've mentioned this back in our original thing, but I'll go over it again now. When you go into a code block, you should indent your cursor by 1, like you see mine floating here. There's a tab there. I have my editor. Oh. Thank you for the 100 bits. Thank you, Yash. I really appreciate that. Thank you so much for the bits. Alright. Wow, that's a lot of bits so far. Keep it up, guys. But yeah, so continuing with these statements. Right, so you'll want to indent. And if you have multiple statements within it, so like this, you'll indent multiple layers. So this is 2 tabs. There's different ways you could do it. Usually, hitting the tab character will indent for you as appropriate. Different programmers and projects have different preferences. They either use hard or soft tabs, and your editor, and if it's soft tabs are basically a certain number of spaces, usually an even number. So like a soft tab would be 2 spaces, 4 spaces, 6 spaces, etc. A hard tab is literally a tab character, which is T, but Okay, yeah, it's the other one, but it didn't show up as correctly for some reason. I'm here to throw hands with Alita. You got to get them in here first. It's 6:30 in the morning for them though, so good luck with that. Um, it's usually up to personal preference what you do, so it's up to you guys what you want to do. Your editor, like Visual Studio Code, has settings so you can set this. So I'm gonna show you guys settings here so you guys can edit this. So first, editor tab size, the number of spaces tab is equal to. The setting is overwritten based on the file context when editor detect indentation is on, which I highly suggest you enable because, like, for example, different projects have different rules. They might use soft tabs, they might use hard tabs, and they may look differently with some soft tabs. So for me, I prefer to use 4 because I'm a Showdown person, and Showdown uses hard tabs that look like they're 4 spaces. So that's my preference. You can do something different. Insert spaces. This one's default checked. I changed it to unchecked. Insert spaces when pressing the tab key. Again, overwritten based on the file contents when detect indentation is on, which I highly suggest you leave on. So if you want to do what I'm doing, uncheck that and make sure the other value is set to 4, and you'll be doing exactly what I do. Otherwise, take your pick. Maybe you think 4 is too much and it puts too much indentation. Try 2 then. Maybe you would rather use spaces than hard tabs. I find hard tabs better because it allows me to quickly move through them instead of something like this and I have to go through each individual one. I find that annoying if I'm trying to shift through them. So any questions on indentation before we move on, or VS Code settings for indentation? Also, far it looks like Yash stole your badge.
Yeah, I'm number 2 now. That's fine.
I wonder where you are on the all-time. Oh, you're catching up still. You're making progress. Okay, I'm gonna take that as no. Let me check the Discord real quick just in case a question rolled in there. Another 100! Well, thank you very much! How many bits do you have hiding? I really appreciate that, man. That's literally so far $2.05. I'll take that today. That's pretty good. Yash has all the bits hiding. I know Shads doesn't have any of the bits hiding because otherwise they'd be subbed to Kraken. And potentially me. Oh, well. Thank you very much. Either way, I really do appreciate it very much, as that's the best way to support me right now, other than potentially art. But since we're on the topic of bits, if you're an artist and want to support me but can't do bits or subs or donations or whatever, doing art for me is something. I'm talking like Twitch emotes, badges, and whatnot, so feel free to contact me on Discord if you are interested in doing that. Anyways, enough ads, back to the class. So, I don't see any questions on indentation, so we're going to move on. I'm just going to get rid of all this because, or well, I'll leave it but comment it out for you guys to look at later if there's questions. Indentation. Okay, so if statements. So, simply enough, an if statement syntax is in the form of the word if, which is a keyword, hence it's purple, a pair of parentheses containing the value you want to evaluate, so like true or whatever, obviously that's dumb, and then a code block after it. So, for example, if true, console.log, the value evaluates to true. So this means that if whatever's within this thing evaluates true, and it's quite literally true right now, so it logs this. So for example, the string containing Ludicolo, that's not on our list of 6 things that will not evaluate. Hey Barnum 4000, how's it going? Let me go ahead and CD into my location. um,
Oh, well, I thought I was in my own chat. Sorry.
have fun. Statements and loops.js. So, for example, we ran this and I did not mean to do that. Sorry, guys. Hold on. There we go. That looks better. Another 100. Okay. How many more do you have hiding? I'm seriously curious now. Thank you so much for the bits, man. Oh, man. I might actually hit 30 today total. I mean dollars specifically. But thank you. Oh, you're programming JS right now, Barnum. That's pretty cool. What are you coding right now? And for the rest of you, I'll quickly go over what happened here. So the value evaluates to true. That means in our statement, this evaluated to true. So if I change this to something falsy like the number 0 or an empty string or whatever, and I run this, nothing happens. That's because the if statement said false. Okay, we do not run the code within the code block. Anything from here to here, not including the braces, it doesn't run the braces. Or, well, I guess technically, well, you can get the idea. The stuff within the braces is not run. So, I'm doing a phone app with Cordova / find gap. I've never heard of those actually myself because I don't do app work, but that sounds pretty cool. I honestly kind of have a bunch of ideas running around in my head, but not enough time. It's just life of a programmer, I suppose. Phone gap. Okay, yeah. I've never heard of that still. Probably because I've never done app work or looked into it. If you want to tell me about it, feel free. I'll keep an eye on it in chat and comment on it. I'm happy to talk. By the way, Fart Yash said fart is cute. Thanks for the sub, Leaf. Ah, there we go. A tier 1 sub, and it's paid too. I really appreciate that. Welcome, Leaf. Let me go, I know you're on the Discord. Let me grab your sub roll right now, and you can poke for a roll. Give me a hex code for a roll color, and I will assign you that just a bit later. I'm just a bit busy right now, but thank you for subbing. I think that's 3, 4, 550 today. That's really good, guys. Yeah, we'll deal with it after class. Yeah, there's another example of if. He just had his bot log to the chat instead. Basically compiles HTML, CSS, and JS to an APK format. That sounds really useful, honestly, because I don't have to learn Android, basically, I guess. So, yeah, so far we've done the basics on if, and we've been getting a lot of bits and such in, and I really do appreciate that quite a bit, guys. Thank you so much. Alright,
I get it. You appreciate that, so, never mind.
You gonna say you appreciate that they're beating you?
No, you said you appreciate it quite a bit.
Oh my gosh. Did you have to turn that into a pun? What if Mr. Beast rates? Oh man. I've actually seen 1 or 2 of those. That's actually pretty ridiculous, but I'm pretty sure he only does donations, so he'd probably come in here and say, oh, there's no donation leak, and leave. So, yeah. Yeah, Shads, it's been really good so far. 300 plus a sub. I'm happy today. That's really good. Mr. Beast is a YouTuber / Twitch person. He goes around on streams and donates like $15,000 to streamers at once. Huge amounts of stuff. Does various things with it. Plays around with it. But yeah, it's pretty cool. He gets that from sponsors, of course. He doesn't earn it all himself, I don't think. But yeah. Because apparently that's a good way to make money off ads or whatever. But yeah, so that's your basic on an if statement here. And let me check to make sure. So that's your first step. Does anyone have any questions on the basic use of if statements? Because we have a lot more to go into, including comparing values, logical gates and whatnot, but basics, do you guys get that? Welcome to the Discord, Decidueye guy. If you want the student role or stream notifications, please do let me or on Twitch mod know in either the Twitch stream or Discord. Actually, preferably Discord, then we'd be able to clearly identify who's who. I don't know if what your Twitch name matches, but yeah. But I think everyone gets this so far. I don't see anything coming in anywhere, so we're gonna go ahead and hop right into our next thing, which is comparing values. So I'm just gonna change this back to something true, and I'm gonna also add this for reference later. Console log. This will never run, which is true actually. I'll go ahead and show you guys. See? But yeah, you get the idea. So, basics. I'm actually pretty bad with commenting my code. It's something I need to improve on, so I'm going to work on it right here. So next up, we're going to do comparing statements. So there's multiple ways to compare things in JavaScript, and I'll show them here. Comparing values, there's all of these options, potentially more, but these are the main ones. They stand for strict equals, strict does not equal, loose equals, loose does not equal, less than, greater than, less than or equal to, greater than or equal to. The last four you're probably familiar with from math. And I realized we were doing statements and I was like, if it isn't a loop. Yeah, sorry. We're not up to loops quite yet. We're gonna go through if statements first. And since we started like 10-15 minutes late, we're gonna go 10-15 minutes late. And if this does take too long, we might do more. But yeah, those are your things. So I'll show each of them here, bar the loose ones. I'll do the loose ones last. So equals to is pretty simple. If 5 equal 5 as an example. So that checks if 5 is equal 5. You can also do variables in all things. So let x equal 5 if x is equal to 5. So if x is equal to 5, console.log x equal 5. So like that will evaluate to true. So what it does here is you could swap this around as well. You could do 5 equal x. Doesn't really matter your order here. It's more or less your it's comparing if these two values are equivalent, and it's not comparing if they're both truthy. So if you did 5, if you set x to 6 and tried to check if it's equal 5, that would return false. That's not gonna work. More or less, it's this thing here checks if they're equivalent. If they are, it returns true. Otherwise, it returns false. And then, of course, since that's the only thing in the if statement, if the if statement evaluates to true, it runs. If it evaluates to false, it doesn't. The other one is not equals, so x does not equal 7. So this will also run to true because x is not 7. Is not 7. I'm just going to do that. And I'll change this to be consistent. But yeah, so more or less the equals is 3, and it's important that it's 3. 1 is an assignment value. 2 equal signs in a row is a loose equals, which I'll get to in a sec of why that's generally a bad idea. And 3 is a strict equals, which is generally what you want to do when comparing values. And for does not equal, replace one of the equal signs with an exclamation point. And of course, there is not a thing for assigning with one thing and an exclamation point, because that doesn't make sense. It's not a compare thing. Assigning is how you assign things to variables, which we went over yesterday. So those are your direct comparisons. Then you have your usual math stuff, like if x is less than 7, so console.log x is less than 7. You also have if x is greater than 3 or whatever, x, the greater than value, so x is greater than 3. And then you have greater than or equal to as well. If x is less than equal to 5. If you just had a less than, I put that in the wrong order. My bad. If x is less than or equal to 5, that means if x is less than or equal to, if that was just a less than, that would return false because x is not less than 5, it's equal to 5. You have to do a less than or equal to make it pass. And the same thing can be said for a x is greater than or equal to 5 check. Which is going to be treated like this. So, those are your basic ones here. Ho and Hero, I got a familiar face to join the Discord, by the way. Hey, it's G Mars. Welcome to the stream, man. Thanks for watching. It's ya boy. Team Skull. Alright, if you're wondering, Gmars, if you're just joining in, we're doing statements and loops in JavaScript today. If you're new to it and want to learn, this course is for complete beginners, but I would highly suggest you start at part 1, which you can find on Twitch, and there's also in the Discord a YouTube playlist with all the videos going up about 24 hours after the stream ends here due to legal reasons. But yeah. And lastly, loose equals, loose compares. Jeez. There's a reason you don't want to use these. So basically they're same as equals. So if, like we did, if x equals 5 with only 2 of them, that's a loose compare. That'll work, sure. But this is the problem here. If x is loosely equivalent to the string 5, that will evaluate as true if you're using a loose compare. Which is really not what you want 90% of the time. 99% of the time, honestly. Because, like, if you're checking and you're thinking, oh, x is equivalent, like, let's say x was the string 5 and you were checking if it was equal to the number 5, then you say, oh, I'm assuming x is a number then. I can do math with it. And then you try to go, I don't know, let me use a new variable here. Let y equal the string 7. And we'll instead just do, for our example here, y is loosely equal to 7, the number. Okay, this is a number, great. I can do this then. I can do y times 5, right? Totally. Legit. Works. Wait, okay, right, that does work. But I forgot it actually supports that in Node now. But seriously, even if it does, I highly suggest not doing that. That should return nan, if I'm being honest. Oh, I didn't turn it into a number. It's a bad habit I don't want to. Encourage you guys to perform. Use strict checks. So yeah, this should generally be nan, not a string. If you tried to do something else numbery with it that it couldn't handle with a string. Or even better, okay, how's this? Y plus 5. That's better.
Yeah.
That would be a better example, because then you get 75, which is not quite true. It just combined the 7 and 5. There's a better example of an issue that could be caused. And then the nan issue may still happen with certain things, so once again, I highly suggest do not do this. Use strict, so that when you run, we do have this up, right? Yes, okay. When we run, that doesn't evaluate to true, so, and I did it again. It didn't run. That if statement evaluated to false because it's not loosely equal. So I'm going to change it back so you guys can see it for later, but yeah, do not do that. Same thing for loose does not equal. Do not use y does not equal 7 because that's going to evaluate to false or whatever. Y is not 7, I don't know. That's not going to run because it thinks y is equivalent to 7. But yeah, don't do it. Simple enough. Does anyone have questions on comparing statements, loss, loose comparisons, etc.?
Are there any circumstances where you would want to use loose comparisons?
Potentially, there are some circumstances where you would want to, for example, to check if a string contains a number, of a specific number. Like, let's say you got user input and that's a string, and you want to check if, I'll get to it in SecLeaf, if that number is, I don't know, 5 or something, and you don't want to parse it. You just need to check if that's true and then take care of it afterwards. Then you could supposedly use a loose comparison, though honestly I don't really think that is. More or less, it's something you'd use on a really case-by-case situation. You would find that situation where you think, it would be really great if I could tell if, oh, hey, it's a raid! Welcome, guys. Welcome to the stream, Party of 9. Welcome, Acho101, and all your raiders. Very silent so far, but welcome. I'll finish what I was saying, then I'll introduce you guys to the stream. But loss comparison, that's a case-by-case situation, really. And generally, it's almost never used. Okay, so for those of you who just joined the channel, welcome to the stream, guys. I really do appreciate the raid here. And this is actually me teaching a new class on JavaScript. And so me personally, I'm a developer for Pokemon Showdown. I've coded in JavaScript for a couple years now. Pokemon Showdown is a competitive Pokemon battling sim. It can be found at this link if you're curious about it. We get usually somewhere between 10,000 users, and thank you for the host, Yash. 10,000 concurrent users and millions of users a month, so it's a big site. I also administrate the site. And by administrate, I don't mean I do sysadmin work, but yeah. Another stream host, thank you guys. I decided to start streaming and then doing this class because a lot of users on the site were very confused about how PS development worked. Newer devs didn't know really where to start or how to contribute to an open source project. And even regular users were just curious about it but didn't know any resources to find more about it, and as a result it caused a lot of problems with confusion and such. But since the introduction of this stream where I just sit down and I program things for Showdown normally, that's what I normally run, a lot of people have started understanding things better, including a lot of policy staff, which definitely helps when deciding site policy and such. A lot of people understand PS better now and understand how much work goes into it, which is a really good thing, honestly. As for this specific class I'm doing, I started this 2 days ago, but hence the day 3. I've been planning this for about a month now, and the goal of this class is to teach completely new users with no prior programming experience whatsoever, or more. You can have experience already, I don't mind. How to program in JavaScript and contribute to open source projects such as Showdown. It started with absolute basics for absolute beginners. I'm talking we really didn't touch code. We literally just logged hello world to the console that day, but that's perfectly fine. It's a beginner stream, and that's part of it. But we went over a lot of concepts, how to think about it, how to be detail-oriented when you're coding, etc. Day 2 was basic data types, so we went over what booleans, strings, numbers are, how to do math in JavaScript, variables, how to mess with them a bit. Really not much, and there was an assignment for that. And today's day 3, statements and loops, so we're doing if statements right now and comparing values specifically. We just finished that section up, and we'll be moving on to more in a little bit here. We'll also be doing the various loops too, assuming we have enough time for everything, as we are. Actually, time's flying right now, which is not a bad thing. If you are interested in the class, this is the information document, and this is the Discord for it. It's also the stream Discord server, so if you're interested in my streams, you can hop in there. If you're interested in participating, feel free to read through that, and if you want to request the stream role, student role, and potentially stream notifications for other non-class streams. And yeah, so thank you very much for coming in, guys. Continuing on, and feel free to, like I said, it's an AMA stream by the tag. You can ask questions anytime. So I'm gonna go ahead and continue on here. So let's see here. Leaf asked a question in chat before we started with this entire list of raids and hosts. Thank you very much, everyone, again.
Leaf asked the difference between strict and non-strict
Okay,
equals.
yes, for me to review that. Okay, so the difference between them can be shown here. More or less, strict checks types and loose does not. So, for example, y is set to a string containing the number 7, so string 7. It's a string and it contains 7. And then we check loosely if y is equivalent to 7. And that will return true because it contains that value. It doesn't check the typing there. That's bad 99% of the time, because if you're trying to use it for calculations or whatever, you could accidentally, for example, with what we have here, 9 plus 5, well, y plus 5, that's a string combining. So you're going to combine string 7 and then turn 5 into a string and combine it to get 75. 7 plus 5 is not 75. Unless you're doing some funny math. So yeah, that's the problem there. Same thing with does not equal loose. It will do the same string check. And potentially you could also run into nan with some math calculations, though it seems like, at least with this version of NodeJS, that JavaScript will actually turn a string containing a number into a number when you try to do math with it. Which honestly I think is kind of weird. I don't know how to feel about that. But does that answer your question, Leaf? Do you have any more questions about it? Because I'd be happy to try to explain it more if you're not getting it. Part of this stream is me just trying to give everyone as much information as they can and really make sure everyone gets it. If you're willing to put in the time and effort to it, I'm willing to help you. Alright, so if we assume y is equivalent to 7, number or string, I'm assuming number right now, value-wise, is it syntaxically wrong? Or should we just not have that typed here reposted? I'm referring to that last bracketed section where it says do not do this. If we assume y is equivalent to 7 value-wise, is it syntaxically wrong? If y was the number 7 here, that would be technically true, but don't use loose. There's literally no reason not to type that extra equal sign and be strict so that it checks the typing. Because that solves a lot of basically logical errors that will just sneak up on you and become hard to find later. Basically, do yourself a favor, write your code carefully, strictly, detailed, and be securely, and you'll do yourself a lot of favors in preventing errors. Loose and strict equals, there is no difference between loose and strict assignment. A single equal sign is assigning a value. There is no loose version of that. Loose versus strict is just comparing values. So there's only these 4 for comparing directly, which I'm about to post in chat. The first 2 are not strict, and the last 2 are strict. Of course, less than and equal to, those don't have loose versions. Those are all strict. Less than, equal to, greater than, equal to are all strict. But yeah, a single equal sign is an assignment, so it's not going to, it's used with variables, there's no loose version. Okay, any further questions on this? Okay. Thank you for the cookie! I don't think I could buy a cookie with 20 cents, but I probably can since I have 320 technically now. Maybe I'll get cookies. Oh, holiday cookie emo. Ooh, give me. What do you mean? You're gonna have your bot give me cookies? With a drone? You're gonna fly cookies out here?
It's 325.
Hold on, I gotta turn you up once. 325. Well, yeah, I got more than that if you count the sub too. I'm just not looking it up right now because it's all starting to add up and I can't do instant math in my head. Okay, fine, I'll pull out the calculator and just add it all up. Plus, right, you gave me 5 bits too, and then I got 250. Yeah, 575, I can definitely buy some cookies. Okay. If y is a number, and you do a strict comparison to a different data type like a string or a bool, it will always return false if y is an int. Voxel PST, JavaScript doesn't have ints or It doesn't have int, double, whatnot. It's all variables are just declared with let, var, etc. TypeScript will have that, but yeah, Space Cactus is using his bot here. That's why they're different colors. But yeah, a loose comparison will evaluate to true. A strict will evaluate to false with strings. If y is a number and you do a strict comparison to a different data type like a string or bool, it will always return false. That is correct, assuming that you mean y is a number. So if like y is the number 7 and you compare it to the string 7 strictly, it'll return false. Yeah. If it's 7.324 and you compare it to the string containing that same number, it'll return false when strictly comparing. And if it's even if it's loose, if it's a different number with there, it would be false, but more or less prevent the slight errors that can occur. If you're in like a situation where you're getting user input and checking if two users' inputs are the same, technically they should probably be the same type string, so you could do strict anyways, but if you wanted them to be number, there is a way to turn a string to a number later. So even with that, I don't suggest loose at all, unless there's some really specific circumstance that you can explain to me why loose is better than strict. In those situations, I'll give, because, you know, it exists, it's there, we can use it if it's appropriate. Like I said, very case by case. So any further questions, I'm happy to take as much time as we need on this. If necessary, I will do a part 2 for statements and loops and just make the statements or something. I'll give them about 30 seconds before we shift into logical operators. Logical gates, I suppose. Whatever you want to call them. Oh dear. Let me check on Twitch Inspector real quick. I'm getting an alert about this. Something is apparently wrong. Oh my, bitrate is just in the floor right now. Oh, and I never started recording? Oh man, that's bad. Okay. I'm just gonna start recording now. I forgot to start recording when the stream started. Okay, that may mess up whatever I do with YouTube then. I'm gonna have to figure out what to do with that. Maybe I can do something. But permanent records.
Does it automatically?
Huh?
Does it automatically upload video? Does it automatically upload your videos to Twitch?
Yeah, Twitch has records. I don't know if I could download from there. I hope I can. I could try contacting them about it. I'll see what I can do about that. Okay, I can download. Okay, and then my butt's saved. I might have to cut off the first like 2-3 minutes of silence, but okay, sure. I'm not sure why we're dropping so much right now. It's probably something like, okay, now it's recovered. I think we're up at stable again, so I apologize for any stream quality issues. Something weird was going on, probably with my connection or something. But continuing here, I don't see any further questions. Okay, actually I'm getting questions on Showdown. Decidueye guy, isn't keyword infinity also sort of falsy? Actually, no, at least I don't think it is, because according to the stuff I've looked up, it doesn't evaluate to false. So, like, let's do node infinity. I can't spell infin. No, it's not false, at least not with a strict check. With a loose check, I don't think it would change. Yeah, infinity is not a false value. It evaluates to true.
Oh, whoops.
But yeah, infinity is a truthy value. And yeah, it's okay to send me a message on Showdown. I just don't watch that as much. You might want to just poke in the Discord general channel, since I see you there now. But yeah, we're gonna go on to logical operators now. So, logical operators, if you still have questions, feel free to drop them in chat. I'll address them. But it seems Is VS Code is worth it just for how nice it is with TypeScript? Yes, that's very nice. It plays well with TypeScript. So, logical operators, there's 3 of them. And, or, and not. Not the, just, there we go, not. And is 2 ampersands, or is 2 pipes, and not is an exclamation point. If you've done or looked into other types of what a logical gate is, you know and means 2 values must be true for an and statement to return true, otherwise it'll be false. Or the 2 sides of the or statement, one of them must evaluate to true, otherwise it's false. And not inverts whatever it's looking at, so if whatever it's looking at is evaluates to true, not will turn it to false. So I'll show you how to apply this in JavaScript. So if, let's just take, let x equal 5, let x equal 9, we already have x, we'll just change it here, it doesn't matter, x equal 9, and y equal 8. You can actually declare variables like this. We already have both of these declared. If not, we would need to stick a let in front. And you can't modify and declare variables on the same line. Like if we wanted to declare these, we do let, not let, just one let, and then a comma between them. So I didn't teach that with logical last variables. But so we have x is 9 and y is 8. So and statement. So if, let's say if x and y, so just simple enough. Numbers that are not 0 evaluate to true. So this is if something that evaluates to true and something that evaluates to true. With an and, it means both sides must be true. So x must evaluate to true and y must evaluate to true, meaning this would run. However, if we do something like x equal 2, this will not run now because x is equal to 9, not 2. So that evaluates to false. Another thing to note with these logical operators is if this rest of it cannot possibly evaluate the true, it's not even going to check. So, like, let's say a common thing you might see is like if object and object.property, which we'll get into that later, but more or less this says if it exists because objects evaluate the true, and then this property exists, because if you try to check a property on undefined, it will crash. So if it doesn't exist, it will not check this at all. That's a use for it, at least. So, like, this won't run. Checking if y equals 2, that also won't run. Because y, so this side evaluates to false now. And something like this will also not run at all. Why? Because both are false. So false and false. So, more or less, summary of and if it's true and true, return true. If it's false and true, return, if I could spell, return false. If it's true and false, we return false. And of course, if it's false and false, it returns false. So, yeah, pretty simple. That's your and. Or, this is what we'll show now. So, you have or. Or is, you guys can probably guess what or is. Here, question first. If you did x and y is equal to 2, it would still evaluate both, even if y isn't 2 because it comes after, right? That's correct. Y would be equal to would be checked because x is a truthy value and is evaluated. Let me double check my inspector again. Yeah, things are still going up and down. Let me know if the stream gets weird or anything, guys, and I'll try to fix it. But previously when this has happened, it really hasn't affected quality or anything. It's just been weird. But yes, you're absolutely correct, CDO Crab. It will run the second one. It'll only skip the second one or anything beyond that if the first one doesn't run the true. So for or is kind of like also compares two values like and. However, it checks if one is equal. If any one of them is equal, it returns true. So, like for example, true or true returns true. True or false returns true. False or true returns true, and false or false will return false. So, as an example, if x or y, that's a double true, and x or y equals 3, that still returns true. This will run as an example. Another thing to, let's see, any questions before I double check? Nope, okay. Another thing to point out is that like and or has its fair share of uses. If the or statement is proven to return true, in other words, the first half is run, it's not going to do the second half. This is actually sometimes used with assignments. So, for example, one assignment example I can give you is let z equal, I don't know, and then it's going to try to do null or 5 or something. Like, let's say instead of null, it was some variable. Like, let's just say x, why not? X or 5. And let's say x was 0. In fact, x equals 0. So it's falsy now. You can set it to undefined, null, anything falsy. Z is going to be either the value of x or the number 5. It's going to be x if that's a truthy value. Whatever's inside x is now also z. Otherwise, it's going to be the number 5. So in this case, z is 5. If we get rid of this by commenting it out or whatever, z is also going to be whatever x is, which is 9 in this case. Okay, so that about covers OR. Does anyone have a question on OR? Actually, I'm going to change this to like 17 so I have a new number to work with and numlocks on. I honestly need to set up my alert box so that raids show up in there too. I don't have the sound I want yet. Okay, I'm going to take it as everyone gets OR for now. If you have questions, feel free to post. So, we're going to go into not. More or less, not invert something. So, not true equals false. And not false equals true. Basic. At least the concept of it. So, to use not, unlike and or, you only need one value. So, if false, like this. So, normally false, like if you do if false, that's not going to run. However, if you do an exclamation point before, not after, before whatever it is, after it calculates whatever that value is, it's going to invert its results. So, false becomes true. So, if you're, for example, do if 2 plus 2, this is going to become 4, which is true, becomes false, and console.log won't run. So 2 plus 2 evaluates to 4, 4 evaluates to true, not true evaluates to false. Hi, I have a question. What do I do if I use a lot of jQuery sentences? Could you clarify what you mean by jQuery sentences? I'm not sure what you mean by that, actually. I've used jQuery before. I just don't know what you mean by that. If you don't know the proper terminology for it, that's fine. I don't know a lot of proper terminology for things either. Maybe you could just post a basic code example in the chat. But that's the idea of false. You can use it pretty much anywhere. It doesn't. All these can be used pretty much anywhere. They don't have to be in loops. Are a newbie or an advanced programmer? I am not. I wouldn't say I'm new. I wouldn't say I'm super advanced either. I have about, what, 2-3 years now of JavaScript. I'm a major contributor for Pokemon Showdown, which is a large open source website, usually with around 10,000 concurrent users and millions of users a month. It's a competitive Pokemon battling simulator, and I submit bug fixes, features, and run the site as well, along with the other upper staff. I'd be happy to link my GitHub if you're curious. post that if you're curious about it. Feel free to poke through that. But yeah. So, does anyone have questions about not or any of the logical operators? So this is the end of logical operators for now. Does anyone have a question about them? Actually, I'm going to take about 2 minutes to get water, so I'll be back. Fart, you have to entertain them.
Okay. Hello, everybody. It's me. My name's Fart, and I am here to help assist Cohen Hero with the stream. So if anybody has any questions in the chat and I can answer them, I try my best to help that too. I have a bot that runs, and you can, if you wanted to test it out, you could do something like this. I'll thank you on behalf of Hoenn. Thanks for the bits, Yash. Sometimes I like to hijack the stream and start singing. So unless anyone objects to that, I'll start doing that. Okay. So this is
All right.
This is a good song. It's called
I saved Fart from having to sing.
51. Okay.
Oh,
my
40 more
project is
bits.
a
Come on,
blackjack
guys. I
website.
disappear and I get
You
more
use
bits.
jQuery to manipulate div components, add cards, read funds, and the value of the cards. Okay.
Okay. I could a basic idea would.
So what are you needing to do? So what this stream is covering, even though it is JavaScript, it's mainly focused on NodeJS, which is server-side rather than client-side JavaScript. So I don't know if we're even going to be going over libraries like jQuery.
We will not be touching a jQuery or
which would be client-side.
A browser in this class.
If we were to go over that, it wouldn't be until a lot later. We're starting pretty much as if there's no knowledge whatsoever.
I felt it would be better to go over
which is
the
why
core
right now we're
concepts
doing
of
things like
JavaScript
logical
before.
operators and loop statements.
Yeah, I felt it would be better to go over pure JS before I touch into libraries or dealing with the DOM.
I don't know if we're going to be
like
able to answer your question in any meaningful amount of time.
I've been muted on Discord. And talking on stream. I didn't even notice. I thought you were trying to talk over me.
Sorry.
Okay, never mind that. Apologies for the two people talking, but yeah, I did let you talk through that. Is here two people or what? Yes, in the stream is Space Cactus, who's one of my mods, and also another programmer who does work with me on Showdown, specifically on the Super Staff Bros Brawl project, which is a format. He's cool. If you can't hear him over the music or something, I can turn that down more, or turn him up more. Probably turn him up a bit. He's quiet today. Normally I have to have him at 25%, but today he can be 46%. Okay, here's a question from ZDL Crab. How does the AND logical operator work with assignment? Like, Z or X doesn't make Z equal true or false. That's one of the values. I actually haven't poked with that before, ZDO, so I can't give you an exact answer without testing. Welcome to the stream, Sin Devil I Love Pie. Sin Dev I Love Pie. What kind of pie? Math pie or cherry? I like cherry. Math pie is also useful. We'll just go ahead and run a node test on that for you. Let x equal 5 and we'll do false and true. 0 and 5. X 0, okay. Interesting. X equal 5 and 0. Still 0. X equal 5 and 6. It's gonna be 6, interesting. If you did z equal x and 5, it would either set either to true or false depending on the definition of x. I mean, yeah, if we're talking like actually, let's try that. We got x equals 6, so let's try x equal x and 5. So x is 6. Right, didn't do z, I meant to do z. And z is 5, actually. So no, that's actually wrong, apparently. I wrote a Lua D obfuscator for JavaScript constant numbers once. Interesting. Actually, D obfuscator, I'm pretty sure that means it clarifies the code or something. Not familiar with the term. And constant numbers. Just not sure exactly what that is. I'm sorry about that. Not fond of cherry. Ah, that sucks. There's lots of good pies though. Pumpkin, apple, etc. So I'll listen to your example and poke with this a bit more. But looking how assignment works with and. Not sure. I think it might be the latter value. But then again, when I did 0 and 5, it was 0, and then 5 and 0 was 0. I don't know. All forms of pie are inferior to key lime. I mean, I'm a Florida person, but I never have had key lime, so I cannot comment on that. Honestly, I think I'd like to try it. Ooh, pecan pie. Ooh, that's good. Gimme. Pumpkin and pecan. Give me some pecan pie, man. Ooh, now I'm hungry. Thanks a lot. But yeah, any further questions on logical operators? Assignment, that's something I'd have to do some research into. I highly suggest you Google that up, actually. Okay. I guess it's time to bring out the Twitch pics thing again. Let me go ahead and just pull that extension back in while we talk. My head's shaking. You're all bad. Okay, I will add a pie thing. Hey Don, welcome to the stream. Well, you've already been here. It's just me not remembering the name change. Let me double check my panels, and I think I have it up and ready. Thanks for the 40 bits, Yash. I really do appreciate that. Alright, let me go ahead and roll this. Activate as panel 1. Modify, come on. I'll get rid of manage playlist. Get rid of this. Okay, add a poll. Okay, so favorite type of pie. This is a very important question. We must answer it. So, pecan, pumpkin. Let's add another choice. Key lime was mentioned. I'll add apple, cherry, blueberry. Start shouting out things if I'm not putting them in. We need to get all of the pies. Oh, you're gonna do it in that. Okay, I know what you're doing there. I've looked at that. 42. I haven't done research into why though, unfortunately.
No, well, yeah. That's not what I meant by I don't know why, but yeah.
Well, then feel free to explain it to him. Pizza pie.
No,
Nah, that's not the type of pie I'm looking for, guys. looks like that's all the
I,
suggested
I
ones.
don't know Despacito. I've honestly never listened to it. If I'm gonna sing anything, it's gonna be Snake Eater.
Okay, we got a good number of pies in here. All right, wait, I did that. Okay, and I guess I'll do one more. No one else is gonna suggest a pie type, so I'm gonna go ahead and just. Um, all right, so there we go. Create the poll, save the changes. All right, there we go. Favorite type of pie is live on the page. At least it should be. So, math. Oh, yeah, I need to do that. Let me add math. I can't. I can't edit it. Dang it. I can't add math. Okay. Too bad. It's got to be an edible pie out of the ones selected. More like demote sacred. Oof. Anyways, yeah, we poked around with pie now. Let's see. Let's keep going, guys. Oh, man. Alright. So, we've done logical operators. I don't see more questions on that, but I'll give you guys like 30 seconds to submit if there's something that you want to ask. High quality memes. 16. In lobby, what? Fart doesn't know the lyrics to Despacito. Yeah, a major F in the chat,
At least I
guys.
can pronounce Despacito.
Well, I can't pronounce anything, so I get a pass. This is so sad. Yes, it is, guys. Okay, I'm taking that as a no. No one has a question, and we're gonna keep going. All right. Another step on our if statement journey, and it looks like we're actually gonna have to split if statements and for loops into their own little thing, I suppose, maybe. So I might not have any assignments for anyone today, unless you guys want to go till 9. I'm happy to go till 9. See if we can get it all done. It's 7:30, so we would have an hour and a half. But sometimes you have something like this: if z is greater than 0 or something. Do this. Actually, if z is less than 0, let's do that. Sure. So like you have this. This doesn't run. Well, what if, for example, you were checking if z is greater than or less than 0, and you wanted to have a situation for both if it's greater than or less than 0. You could do if z is less than 0, and then if z is greater than 0, and then potentially if z is equal to 0. Or you could use this new tool called else. Else, you stick after an if statement, and thank you for the follow, sign dev love I love pie. You've been working on an HTML5 video player with full support for advanced substation alpha subtitle, the most complex subtitle format in the world. Wow, that's probably complicated to make if it's a complicated subtitle system, but that's probably a good thing then, because that helps with accessibility, right? But quickly back to else. The idea here is if z is less than 0, it will log negative to the console, and then else is a backup. If that first statement returns true, it'll log negative and not run the else statement. Else will not be checked if the if statement returns true. Meaning that else will only run in that extra situation. So if it fails, it will it'll log positive to the console. This will always do something. And like even if z is a string or something and you can't compare it in that way and it returns false or something, it's going to run positive as a result. So watch out for things like that. You can actually do something else with these too. What if you want to handle 0 specifically? You want to handle if z is less than 0, greater than 0, and if it's exactly 0. You don't have to have another, you don't have to complicate this further. You can use an if-else. So that would look like, let me go ahead and set this up. If, else if is actually what it's called. So else if statement. So else if z equals 0, like exactly 0. So console.log 0. In this case, the logical process is, first it checks if z is less than 0. If that's true, none of the rest of it runs. If it's false, it does not run the block that contains console.log negative and moves on to the next, where it's an else if. So it needs to check if z is equivalent to 0. If z is equivalent to 0, it'll run that block and not run any of the other blocks. It just stops. So if there's like 30 more elf ifs, it just stops. The rest of them will. Actually, does it just stop? I'm pretty sure it does. But yeah.
Does.
Yeah, it does. Okay, that's right. It will not run the rest. Even if you have another if z equals 0 down the line, it won't run that one, just the first one. So combine that into the first one. And if that's false, it's going to hit the last else statement, and that'll do that no matter what, because the first two returned false. The only way that it would not run that last one is something crashed and stopped code execution as a result. We're assuming nothing's crashing, though. So in this case, it'll tell us if z is negative, positive, or 0. And we'll just clarify this here. So right now, from our statement here, z equal x or 17x is 9, so z is 9, so z should be positive. And when we run this, last line here, z is positive as expected. Okay, so I have a question from SignDev. I love Pi. Any idea why my subtitles will run on any browser on OS X L Captain, in other words a Mac, and on no browsers on OS X Sierra or above? I'm using the same version of browsers on both. Unfortunately, no. I used to use a Mac years ago, but currently I don't use Mac, and I was not a programmer back then, so I wouldn't have been able to tell you, even if it was still me using a Mac. Well, that would be something to Google, probably. Google would probably help you out quite a bit there. Okay, what was it actually? I'm curious. It's really weird. Probably is OS compatibility and whatnot. In the meantime, does anyone have questions on if, else, this? And yes, you can do more than one else if. You could do a bunch of them, like another. If we wanted to, we could do else if whatever thing here. But I'm not going to because I don't want to, actually. I mean, it just found out. Oh, okay. So would you just keep using else ifs until you use the final else statement? There is actually something I recommend above if you're going to do a large number of checks, and those checks are just checking basically if something is equivalent to something. If they're all if x equals this or x equals that, use, yes, a switch. That's what we're getting into next, actually. However, if you need to do comparisons like this, where you need to do greater than or equal to, or even combinations such as if x is between 10 and 30, then you would want to use a bunch of else ifs. My bad. But yes, switch is the appropriate answer in that situation, which we are getting to next, I'm pretty sure. Let me check my document. Yes, switch statements are right after we finish this, so sit tight and I'll explain them in detail. For the length that I would suggest before switching to a switch statement, assuming that it's all is equal to, I prefer to try to stick to no more than 3 or 4 is 3 or 4 blocks. So like this is 3, this whole chain is 3, the initial if and the else count as 3. I mean 1 each, and of course the else if counts as 1. So I would say you could in theory stick in one more else if before I'd go in and say, okay, you should probably be using a switch here. Even with the other one, you should probably be using a switch, but yeah. That's my personal take on it, though. But if you're doing like 5+, really, you should be. That's, of course, for if if this variable is or whatever you put into the switch is equal to one of these options. But yeah. Right, oh. I forgot about that, sorry. But yeah, all three of those are, that counts as 3. Does anyone else have a question? Let me double check Showdown for PMs. Okay, none there. And nothing on Discord. I like how some people are one color in chat and one color when they show up on my stream. I think that's just because there's no default color picked and it just picks one or something. I just show up as green everywhere though, that's great. I'm going to take that as no questions for now, so we're going to head into switch statements, if I can spell. Alright, so, like we said, switch is for many different options. The syntax is switch value, and like this, so it's kind of like this. That's your initial switch block. Within the switch block, there's some special syntax though. We introduced 2 new keywords here, case and break. So for each value you want, and we're also introduced default, but that's after this. Syntax, yes. If you don't, because you don't know me, sign developer, I'm very good at mispronouncing basically everything, and typos and whatnot. I have the logical process, and I usually don't typo my variables or whatever, but yeah, I have to be careful with my grammar and such. It's just one of those things for me. But for switch syntax, it's case, possible value. It doesn't have to be a string, it could be a number or something, you could do 6. And specifically, it's case, whatever it is, semicolon. Colon. Not semicolon, a colon. Then you'll notice it indents again by default, which is fine. And you want to put whatever you want to do in here. When you're done with whatever you want to do, you must put in a break. That tells it this is the end of that case. Then you could put in another one, like case 7 or whatever. And I'm going to change value to like, we'll just make a value actually. Let value equal pizza something. So like within here, case pizza, and no, it does not matter that I declared it with double quotes and this one's single. But yeah, you would write whatever you want your code to do here. Like, let's say we wanted console.log 1, and then just make it 2 and 3 for the others. So something along those lines. So in this case, it would log 3 to the console because value is equivalent to the string pizza. Loops through, is it equal to the string possible value? No, skip. Is it equal to 7? No, the number 7, skip. Is it equal to the string pizza? Oh yeah, console.3 break. So yeah, syntax. I gotta go. Peace out. Thanks for coming in, Yash. Thanks for the bits. I really do appreciate that. Syntax, yes. Okay. Syntax, whatever. Syntax. I don't care. For personal, another thing you might see a lot with this stuff is people will make the case on the same line as the switch. I honestly prefer that with my indentation, but I will accept the other version because that's also commonly accepted. Personal/project choice, again, Showdown does it like this. Now, I'm going to explain what the breaks are for exactly right now. So case other console.log 4 break. So if you forget to put your break in and you run this, actually let me just run it properly first so you guys can see what it does. Um, so like you see down here, logged 3, which is what was in the statement. So however, if we go in here and we get rid of this break, you'll notice something changes when we run this. 3, 4. But wait, this doesn't make sense. So we go in here, case pizza, log 3, but over here another case called other 4. Pizza, the string containing pizza does not equal a string containing other. Why is it logging 4? It's the break statement. The break statement tells the execution when a value matches, it says, okay, we move inward. So we start executing things inside until we hit a break statement. At that point, we exit the entire switch loop. We're done. So no break statement means it does something called falling through. And this can be useful in some cases. So like, let's say you wanted to also have pizza pie point to this. In this situation, pizza pie would immediately fall through into the same code as pizza. So if value pizza pie would also log 3 to the console. It's useful in some cases, and that's why break is there. If you forget a break or all your breaks, though, you're going to have a lot of problems. So don't forget your breaks where they're appropriate and use falling through as appropriate. Final thing on switches is what's called a default value. Default needs to be at the end of the entire chain of switches, and instead of case whatever, it's default colon. No value included. Assuming the switch statement cannot match whatever you're checking in with the rest of it, it will run default. So console.log default. So let's say up here we change pizza to, I don't know, purple pizza. Because why not? And we try to run it. It's going to log default because I did it again. None of these values are handle purple pizza. Is that how PS does command aliases? No, actually, because that's a thing with functions. It does not use a switch statement, but on client, yes, because it does use a switch. On server, no, we use an object and methods, which is something you'll get into later. Does anyone have a question on this? I will go ahead and run the fall through thing so you guys can see that right now, but feel free to throw questions at me in the meantime. As you can see, that logged 3 even though value's pizza pie, so that's how the fall through works. So does anyone have a question on switches? Firecopy asks, if you put default higher up without a break, will it fall through? I'm pretty sure a syntax error occurs if you put default higher up, actually. Let's try that out, why not? And I'm not sure. Let's try putting it... Yeah, come on. VS Code's trying to be helpful and indent when it shouldn't be. Let's try running this Alt-C node. Okay, it does run, and it's going to go ahead... Oh, right, we didn't hit the default in the first place. We ran something before that, so let's try editing that. Okay, so default 4, it will drop through, so yes, put default at the end to prevent that. If you put a break in, it should prevent it, just like anything else. So, yeah, like that, it'll only run the default. It, however, will not even get to 4, so like if we set our value here to other, which should be 4, like we see here. However, we have default before it. This should, in theory, log default. But no, it actually runs 4. Interesting. You can put default anywhere, really. Okay, that goes contrary to how I was taught JavaScript, apparently. But you learn something new every day, I suppose. You don't need a break statement on the last thing in a switch statement because that's the end of it anyways. But, yeah. It does run 4 there, which is quite interesting. It seems it does default last regardless. Pretty smart. Maybe whatever I was learning was a really old version of JS or whatever when I was originally learning all this. Just update that, okay? Good convention to break every part of a switch statement. Yes, that's very much correct. Only fall through when you intentionally want to. And the reason I say don't put a break against default is because that's Showdown standard. We have an ESLint test, and it will throw an error at me if I try to put a break in a default. So that's why I do it this way. But you can do this if it helps you remember it, and feel free to, as long as whoever's maintaining whatever project you're contributing to doesn't say otherwise in those situations. Make your change. But yes. So any further questions about switch statements? Yeah, different projects have different standards. So things happen. Like here, I'll show you guys. Let me go ahead and npm test here. Do all versions of JavaScript support string and switch statements? I'm not sure, but I started learning JS in 2015 in a browser, so that was an older version of it, so I'm pretty sure it's been supporting strings for a long time. It would be something I'd have to Google. Yeah, okay, cool. When did they start supporting strings in switch statements? Like how old? Like 2004 or something like that? That was just a random year, by the way. If you don't know, that's fine. So I don't see any further questions here, so I think I'm gonna push into our next thing. So we've been through all of our statements, if and loop. MCA5. Oh, hello. Yeah, some of my private files are not compiling or playing nice. Whatever. Deal with it later. But yeah, indentation. Oh boy. Okay, I'll deal with it later. Okay. So I'm assuming there's no further questions because I'm not seeing them. So we're gonna get started with loops. Lots of fun with loops. So a loop is the idea of preventing kind of what happened yesterday, really. So like this is our solution for yesterday's code. Kind of like this, tons of lines repeated, especially down here. This second part could have easily been improved by a loop, but you guys didn't know it yet, so yeah. The idea here was you change the value of x 3 times and printed out the solution to 4 different math equations each of those times. Obviously, I wrote that poorly, and some of you submitted otherwise, but I accepted it anyways, but this was the idea here. So loops allow you to repeatedly perform a task. That's the basic idea of it, at least. So, first loop we're going to teach is called a for loop. It's pretty simple. It's basically says for as long as this is true, we run through. So, the syntax for loop is the for keyword, open parentheses. So inside of these, and of course it has its own code block, inside of these parentheses there's 3 arguments separated by semicolons. First, the control variable. You can create your variable here or use an existing one. So if we wanted to use x, we'd do this. If we wanted to use a new one, we would do like let I equal whatever. 0 is a usual value to start with. You can also set it to 1 if you want to start with 1 or whatever. A lot of stuff starts with 0 in JavaScript, so 0 is a useful starting value. Quick question, would you say 67.45 KB JS file is big? Kilobyte, I'm trying to remember differences between the sizes. That's something I don't remember. Yeah, okay, kilobyte, yeah, megabyte. Kilobyte is 1024 bytes, megabyte is 1024 kilobytes, gigabyte is 1024 megabytes. So it's obviously one of the smallest things. I don't think that's very big, honestly, at all. Based on that, a byte is a single character. Yeah, it's not very big. 6,069, about 70,000 characters is not that much. When minified. Well, yeah, minification's nice. Continue with for loops here, because we're getting a bit off track here. So you declare your control variable. You could create one like we're doing here, or you can use an existing one. You have to put it in that first slot before the first semicolon, though. So in this situation, we're creating a control variable called I, and this is where let comes into an advantage here. I'll explain in a second. Let over var here. We're creating a variable called I and setting it to 0. Next is the condition. So we need to run until this condition evaluates to false. It's like an if statement. So we're going to do I is less than 10. So as long as I is less than 10 and it starts at 0, so yeah, this will continue. Finally, you need the incrementation statement. So after the loop completes, this whatever's in here will be run. In this case, I'm going to do I++, and I'll explain what that is too, because I didn't teach you guys how to increment variables like that. More or less, this states that create a variable called I, as long as I is less than 10, loop through this, and at the end of each time we run this block of code, increase i's value by 1. That's what plus plus means. The other way to increase values are var plus plus is increase the value by 1. Var minus minus is decrease the value by 1. And there's no there's no divide, or multiply, only plus, plus, minus, minus. However, there is plus equal, minus equal, multiply equal, and divide equal, which says if you do like var plus equal value, var minus equal value, it will either, depending on what it is, it'll perform that mathematical operation between the variable and the value on the other side of the assignment operator, and then set that variable's value to that result. So for example, let's say you had a variable called x that was equal to 5. So let's say you have x, which is 5, and then you do x multiply equal 2. So that will give us, so it takes 5 times 2, that's 10. X is now equal to 10. So it's shorthand for x equal, it's shorthand for x equal x times 2. You can apply instead of multiply. You could use add, subtract, divide as well. So that's a shorthand for all of those as well. Like I said, you can, and the plus plus is short for, and x plus plus is short for x plus equal 1. So obviously, which is short for another thing, which is short for x equal x plus 1. There is no multiply, divide, so there's no x asterisk asterisk or x slash slash, especially since the double slash is the comment indicator, guys, so remember that one. You can't use those. If you want to use those, you have to use one of these, even if it's 1. So yeah, I will go ahead and move this comment out of my initial loop and put it here and get rid of this indentation. But yeah, any questions on incrementing and decrementing variables that contain numbers? And it's starting to get a little late, guys. We have about 25 minutes here. Um, Let me know if you guys want to keep going after that. I can definitely push this longer than 2 hours to try to push through the rest of this content. But I'm going to take no one posting a question as a no to the question answer. And keep going here unless that's something for me. No? Okay. Okay, cool. So, continuing forward then. For loops. So, like we said, this loop here, the control variable I, which we create and set to 0, as long as I is less than 10, this loop will continue to run, and once a single run of this loop completes, once this code block completes running, it does this, it runs whatever code is here. So I++, it can be a single statement like this. So in this case, it will, every time this runs, I increases by 1. So the first time it's 0, then it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and then it becomes 10 at the end of a loop. And then when it tries to run again, I is 10 less than 10? No, it's equal to. False. The loop stops. It continues execution down here at line 134. So that's the basic idea there. So let's just do a simple .log I, and I will do before this console.log, I don't know, a couple new lines, and we'll do that to make it clear what's going on compared to the rest of our stuff. So there's that, and we're going to go ahead and run this. So down here, loops. So we only had one log statement after the log of all that new line content loops. However, we have 9 logs, like I said. The loop did it repeatedly. It logged I each time, and each time it incremented by 1 until it got to 10, which returned false, and then it stopped, which was technically the end of the entire file. So that's the idea there. So what could we do with this? What can you do with a loop? A lot of things. So for example, with day 2 solution, let's go ahead and write a loop version. A better version that uses a loop. So we have x. I'm not going to redeclare it because it's the same file, so I'm going to do x equals 7. We want to set x to 7, but to do this, we need to do this 3 times. So we're going to create a loop. Let I equals 0, I is less than 3, or not 4, 3, please. I++. So that means perform this 3 times. You could also start, if it's clear for you, I equal 1, I is less than 4. 1, 2, 3. So over here, now it could be a bit tricky to set it. You could, in theory, just instead of using x, you could use I here and just do that. So let's do that, sure. I'm going to copy paste all this and replace x with I because it's simple. So the value of, we're going to use I here. Various values are getting replaced with I. So this of course isn't as interesting as using big numbers, but I can't think of a really simple way to do that right now. Other than like, I don't know, potentially an if, else if, etc. Say if I equal 1, if I equal 2, if I equal 3, do these. But yeah, you could also, if you wanted to make this more interesting, modify what it is. So we could start I at 100. I is less than 400, I plus equal 100. So this is value. This loops by 100. So this starts at 100. The value of I will be 100. Then at the end of it, it increments it to 200 and runs it again. Then to 300 and runs it again, and then stops. So let's go ahead and run that as an example to show you guys. And we're going to go ahead and... Okay, we don't have it. Lovely. Oh, I do. Where is my thing? I have it somewhere. Okay. Node. I'll just type it out. Day 2 solution. Okay, and I didn't type it right. Come on, is a solution? Okay, am I in the right file? Right, I'm not. I'm not in the right folder. Okay, so this content here is from the original thing, and the content underneath the highlighted content is our loop. So the value of I is 100. Then it does I plus 7, 105. 650 minus I, 550. The quantity I minus 78 times 9, 198. I times 101 divided by 4, 2,525. Then it does it at 200, so I plus 7, 207. And same thing down there, 307. You could clearly see the incrementation here. So you can increment or decrement by whatever value you want. You could also do this in reverse if you wanted to. You could start with I equal 300. I is greater than 0. I minus equal 100. And if you run that, you're going to get this highlighted block. Starts with 300, goes to 200, 100. That's in reverse. Now, I'm going to give you guys a warning right here. Let's say you accidentally did, and you told this to be while I is less than 400 or something like that. Well, what happens in a situation like this is called an infinite loop. So I can kill this quickly, so I'm going to run it anyways. But normally this is pretty bad, so I'm going to kill it really fast once it starts. Wait, I didn't save that, did I? I equal 300, I is less than 400, I minus minus. Yeah, I didn't save. Okay, let's do this again. As you can see, it just continuously keeps going. Way more times than we intended. I killed it off because I know what's happening. If you don't know what happened, you might not. But more or less, that's called an infinite loop. The loop will never exit. Why? Pretty simple. You start I at 300 and you take 100 away from it each time. So 300 is its highest value ever. The loop will only terminate if I is greater than 400 or equal to. Nothing in this code ever sets I to something greater than or equal to 400. Ever. So this is an infinite loop. It will never stop looping. And that's bad. You don't want infinite loops. So be careful. So since it will always be less, it will constantly run. Yes, because we're checking to make sure that since the conditional will always be true, the loop will never stop. If you run into an infinite loop when you're doing your assignments later today, Control C. Hold the Control key, push the C key. That will kill the file you're running. And if you're doing this in the node, you may have to push it twice. But just kill it and check your loop. If you need help, come to me. So that's our basics on for loop here. I think that's everything for for. Right. I do have 2 more things to go over with for loops, but does everyone get what I've said so far? Or have any questions? Because I will gladly take questions as usual. Okay, cool. So yeah, be careful with your loops, TDLR. Okay, I'm going to introduce another use for break and a statement called continue now. Let's go ahead and head back to our other files. So, 2 statements called break and continue. So, we know what break does in switches, but we don't know what exactly it does in loops. But we're going to start with continue, actually. So, with break and continue, they have an effect on the execution of a loop. If you call continue in a loop, so like let's say we want to, so if you call, let me just type something out. If I equals, let's say we don't like the number 5 or something. Then yeah, so if I equal 5 continue, what does that mean? What it means is if I is equivalent to 5, so that's obviously an if statement, we all know about that, and yes, you can, this is legal, you can skip the code block if you put it all right after the if statement. you could also write it with a code block if you wanted to. It will run the continue word. The continue keyword tells a loop to skip the rest of this loop. So it will skip everything after this line within this loop and just skip straight to incrementing and doing the next loop if applicable. Kind of falling behind, just getting a bit burnt out since I don't like the numbers. Jolteon Knight, what do you mean by numbers specifically? If you're still here, actually. Not sure if you're still here. Looks like you still are according to chat, but if you can explain what's going on, I can happily try to help you with whatever it is. But yeah, so continue would skip 5 in this circumstance, and I'll go ahead and run this to show you guys. So for example, loops 1, 2, 3, 4, where's 5? It's not here. It did not execute because we decided to continue, which skipped the console.log statement. Console.log was not called because continue was called. So that's the idea of that. You can use continue to skip. So like if we wanted to skip all even numbers as an example, let's say we don't like even numbers in this situation or don't want them. So if I is divisible by 2, if you get a remainder of 0, 13579. So yeah. Another thing, let's just do, let's take this break. So we'll use break this time. If I could type it out, that would be helpful. A break statement is like a continue statement. Yes, continue is called next in Ruby. That's actually interesting. Break differs from continue in one way. They both stop the execution of the current loop. However, break completely stops the for loop completely. So in our example here, we have if I is 7, break. Normally afterwards you would have 8 and 9. And you log 7. But right here it says, okay, 7, break. We skip to the end of the loop, we're done. Line 136. So you would log 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and then it would stop. Nothing more. I will show you that right now. There it is. Break terminates the execution of the entire loop. So, questions on break, continue, or anything else? I see a question coming in potentially. So we'll just wait a moment here. Not really? Okay. Never mind then. So, yeah, cool. So that's our basics of for loops at least. So we do have a few other small things to do which we can whip through fairly quickly. So another type, there's 2 other types of loops that we can do, and they're both very closely related. And just like a for loop, they loop things. So the first one's called a while loop. So it's while condition. Let's set run to true as an example. While run. So it's that simple. While condition. As long as that condition, in this case run, is true, that will loop. And if you're smart and you're looking at it and you're like, Cohen, this is an infinite loop, you're very correct. Nothing we're doing nothing, so that will just infinitely run. So you have to have something to handle it. So, like, for example, let's just say, let's do num instead. Num equals 0. Let's just do an incrementation. Num is less than 1,000. Console.log. Num, this is going to spam like crazy, but whatever. Num plus plus. So in this situation, it would log num to the console and then increment. So Oh, and I'm not even... Yep, sorry. Okay, I will show you guys again. So, I declare a variable called num, set it to 0, while num is less than 1,000. It works like an if statement. If that evaluates to true, it loops. It keeps looping. It checks this every time it starts a new loop. We log num to the console, and then we increase its value by 1. I'm actually going to, instead of that, I'm going to increase its value by 5 to speed this up a bit. And to run this as an example, as you can see, there's a huge amount of looping going on here, but it did finish. Like, it goes through 6, and then everything beyond that is going to be that while loop I mentioned. Yeah, so that's a while loop. You can just, like, another way you could do it is, for example, instead of that, we could say let num equals 0. And also, let's do run equal true. Another way we could do this, while run console.log num plus equal 5 if num is greater than or equal to is greater than or equal to 1001, because I want to do that. Break. And I don't know, let's also do if. I'm just going to be fun and do a little more here. If num is divisible by, I don't know, 4, continue. If it's ever divisible by 4, just continue. So in this situation, what it does is this creates a variable called num, which is set to 0, and run, which is true. While run is a truthful value, console.log num plus equal 5. Then if num is divisible by 4, continue. Actually, I need to move this before it logs. I'm going to do that
Shouldn't
first.
the break actually be run equals false?
No.
No?
It depends on your situation. You could just do either or, actually. You could do num equal false, yes, and that would terminate because nums become... run, I just said num. Run equal false. You could also do break like I was doing. Both of those will work. I mean, like, obviously there's no point in having run. If you do that, you might as well just do while true. But break will, just like on a for loop, terminate the loop and continue just like a for loop. Will skip to the next step of a loop. So in this case, both of these, once num is greater than or equal 1001, fixed my typo there, it will terminate. So for example, let's run this. Excuse me. That's not working. I didn't save. Okay. Double check while run equals true. Also, if num is divisible by 4, continue. I'm just gonna get rid of the divisible check just in case that's doing something funky. But yeah, see, it goes up to 1,000 and then terminates. You could also include break instead, which would do the exact same thing as you can see down here. So we're going to go ahead and run that, and same result. So, any questions on while loops? What's the point of using continue of this purpose to make it ignore the line? It doesn't ignore that single line leaf. It would ignore the rest of the loop. So, like, let's say, let's turn this back into a continue. Up here, I is equivalent to 7. It skips everything beyond this continue statement. So if you had like 50 lines of doing whatever after that within this for loop, none of that would get run. In certain situations, you just want to skip a loop because, like, no, we don't want to process whatever this data is we're looping through. That'll happen a lot. Continue is quite useful for that. Break is also quite useful if you get to a point where you find out that we need to exit the loop now. That's a good way to do it. So, yeah. Does anyone have any further questions about any of this so far? Okay. I'm happy to sit down and talk with you more about it later, Leaf. The next one is actually almost identical to while. It's called a do-while loop, and it's almost never used. Syntax is do, while, condition. So, yeah, let's say we do run again. We have our break, so that's true. So do num plus equal. We'll just do num plus plus if num is if num is greater than 5, break. So you may think, what's going to happen here? So in a normal loop, if you had something like this, like at this point, num is greater than or equal to 1001. It's probably it's 1005 based on how I'm looking at it, because we're reusing it. So if this was a normal while loop, it would increase num by 1 first. Actually, this thing with while run, if num, okay, no, even better. Let me just do while num is less than 5. Okay, so let me modify that. Okay. I'm gonna actually log this after I'm just gonna log num. Apologies for modifying this, but this is easier to explain than. So, if this was a normal while loop, you would have while num is less than 5 console.log num. Num is currently not less than 5 when it starts, meaning the loop will never execute. If the condition for the looping is not true when you start, the loop will not run at all. The only exception to this is a do-while loop. A do-while loop will do the loop once regardless of if the condition is true. It loops and then it does its first check. So this will console.log num, but only once because this is false right off the bat. Otherwise, it's exactly like a normal while loop, and you have to treat it as such. Be careful with while loops, this is quite easy to infinitely loop. Okay, so any questions on these loops? I have one small thing left to touch on otherwise. Okay, I'm going to take that as a no then. Okay, good. So, last thing that I'm going to teach for the day, other than showing you guys the assignments really quickly, is called a ternary operator, an inline if. More or less, it allows you to perform an if statement in a tight space. So, like, let's say we already have x and y from earlier, so I'm just going to make new ones. We have a, which is 8, and you don't want b, you want b to be 8 if a is not 8, and otherwise you want it to be, I don't know, 23, whatever. So normally you do something along the lines of if a is 8, b equal 23, else b equal 8. That's not necessary though. Instead, if I could actually type my comment, multi-line comment thing, we're going to use an inline if. So, and you'd obviously these have to be let, beat isn't defined yet. Inline ifs allow you to do that all on one line, and much cleaner than if you were using a standard. So, let b equal a is 8, so your condition. So first you start with your condition like any if statement, then you put a question mark in. So that signifies the start of it. So then then you put in the statement you want to do if it's true. So in this case it would be the value you're assigning to b if a is 8, which would be 23. Then you put in a colon, and then the else statement. There's no if, else, if, etc. It's just if, else. So in this case 8, end of line. So this is the same as this. This says let b equal, and then it runs the statement. If a is 8, 23. Otherwise, 8. Between for and while, which is preferred? For is actually preferred. It depends on your circumstances, though, like most tools. Like I said, with a switch statement and an if-else chain, depends on what exactly you're doing. Like if you need to do a comparison, an if-else chain is a must. Otherwise, if it's just checking, I mean like less than or equal to, like things like that, or doing math in your checks, you would be an if-else. Otherwise, if you're just checking if a value is equal to another, you could use a switch, especially if there's a lot. A for loop is generally more secure. If you're doing a finite loop and you know how much you're going to have to loop before ending it, you'll want to use a for loop. If you're doing a loop and you don't know how long you're going to have to loop for till you end with it, and one of our assignments is like that, while the other is a finite loop, you know how many times you have to loop. You'll want to use a while loop if you don't know how many times you'll need to loop. So keep that in mind when we do assignments. Does anyone have a question on ternary operators before I review our assignments here for today? I'll pull it back up so you guys can see. And freaking Edge, I don't want you to do this. Okay, I'm going to take that as a no. Don't see anything. Okay, let me double check. Alright, so we're going to go over assignments then. So today, 2 assignments available. First one is, I'm calling it the Ludicolo test, but it's based off it's a modified version of another popular test if you can, quote, code your way out of a wet paper bag, unquote. It's not an insult, guys. We all start somewhere. Basically, it's really simple. I'm assigning to see if you understood this day's concepts. So the instructions: write a script that counts up from 1 to 100, including both 1 and 100. Count up one number at a time. Actually, I will edit that right now. If this thing would actually load. Okay, you're just being a jerk now. Okay. That counts up from 1 to 100, including both of the number. One number at a time. Okay. As you count up, log the current number to the console. However, if the current number is divisible by 4, print Ludi to the console. L-U-D-I, just like it says there. Make sure to capitalize it, etc. It's a string. If the current number is divisible by 6, log colo to the console. And if the current number is divisible by 4 and 6 at the same time, log ludicolo to the console. If you log one of the above strings to the console, do not log the current number to the console. Because if none of those are loggable, you log the number. Turn it into me. I want to see how well you guys understood the lesson. I want to help you if you're not doing well with it. I only get Fs, that's because you're bad. Yeah, because you do horrid stuff. I don't know if I'm going to do assignments today. I'm tired. I'm okay with an F. It's okay, Scrimble. I'm not grading any of this, by the way, guys. Literally, this is all for your help. If you're too tired to do it or busy or whatever, do it later then. Like, I will be happy to look at any assignment. Like, if someone submits day 2's assignment 8 days from now, I will look at it and give them feedback. And I will give them feedback based on they only know stuff from day 1 and 2. Hints. Remember dry. Don't repeat yourself. Hint 2. Day 2, introduce the JavaScript math operator that could tell you if a number is divisible by another number. I have to clarify that. And then the usual stuff. Write your stuff down here, basically. Update. Okay. We'll go ahead and update that, and I will link this in the chat now for you guys. And there is a second one that I will go over quickly. Come on. FocusMiss.js. The FocusMiss script, and I'm just going to open this for editing right now because... Yeah, so the FocusMiss script. If you have ever played competitive Pokemon and used a low accuracy move such as Focus Blast or Stone Edge, it always seems to miss at the worst times possible, or even worse, just never hits at all. This script plays off that concept I want you to build on this template that I've written and calculate how many times Focus Blast or another Pokemon move with 70 accuracy of less, you guys can modify if you want, hits in a row. To make this assignment work, you would need to use some JavaScript code that you have not learned yet. As a result, I have written a small function for you that handles the parts that you have not learned. Please see the comment above the function for details about how it works. Once you have calculated how many times your move has hit before missing, because that's the goal, run it until it misses. Log that result to the console, preferably in a nice string such as move name, hits, times before missing. So hints, your results will vary each time due to the randomness of a move hitting or missing, just like in Pokemon. So you'll need to account for that. Remember dry, don't repeat yourself again. Another hint to use, loops. Is this a variant of Fizzbuzz? I'm not saying. A for loop will not work here. There's a different kind of loop that will work for this. And then turn it into me so I can ensure you understood the concepts and offer feedbacks and areas you could improve. I'm not grading you guys, by the way. I'm just trying to help you again. This is all to make sure you guys are understanding it so that when you go off and do whatever, you can do it without me sitting there and reviewing all your code. So you would write your code underneath this comment here, but this is the function that I wrote. This block here, you don't need to touch this. This is a function. You don't know what they do yet, but it will help you during this assignment. I would treat this like a console.log and just teach you how to use it, not how it works, just like I did on day 1 with that. So, to run it, you need to type run move and then in parentheses accuracy. However, you need to replace accuracy with a number that represents the accuracy of the move you're trying to see will hit. For example, if we're trying to do Focus Blast, which is 70, we would do run move 70, like that, with a semicolon. So that's how we would run it. And yeah, so the function will determine. Alright, so the function will return a value, meaning that if you assign a variable to run move accuracy, the function will determine what the value is. So, like if we do let x equal run move 70, x will be equal to whatever this returns. The function will randomly return either true if the move hit or false if it missed, meaning x will be true or false. The function also only calculates one attempted use of the move at a time, so it'll only try to see if Focus Blast or whatever you're using hits one time, one at a time. If you need to do more than once, which you probably do, write code to run that function more than once. So yeah, you'd write your code here. Does anyone have any questions on that relating to the function? I'm going to take that as a no. If you do have a question, feel free to pass it on to me, though. So, let me go ahead and link this in chat as well. Alright. So, that's the end of today's plans. So, before we go, thank you for watching, everyone. If you're not part of the class already and are interested, this is the document and the Discord that it's taken part in. I suggest you read the document and look into it. It's intended for anyone, even completely new programmers who have no prior experience whatsoever, to try it out. So feel free to give it a shot. Oh my god, maybe he can when we're done here. But for those, if you want to see more of this class content, I highly suggest you join the Discord and get the student role so you get pinged. And if you just want notifications from Twitch, be sure to follow and turn on notifications. I also do other streams. I'll do a lot of other streams when this class is over. That's the current focus of my channel, though. So yeah, I do a lot of Showdown dev work, like I said. The 2 ways to get notified for that: again, Twitch, follow and turn on notifications, or head into the Discord and ask for the stream notifications role, which you'll get notified anytime I go live. So for those of you, a bunch of you, I had a sub from Leaf today. I really appreciate that. Thank you very much. 5 bits from Fart, thank you very much, and 400 bits from Yashka Ninja, also a huge thanks for that. Um, Lee, feel free to contact me in the subs channel for your Discord color roll. Um, and yeah, I think other than that, we're all set. I will be putting the link to the stream in the Discord for later and the assignments in there. Please do not feel that you need to do these assignments perfectly or whatever. The whole idea is for me to gauge where you are and help you improve if you're not there. So, Fart, if you want to send us off with that, it's up to you.
What am I doing?
What Scrimble said in chat.
Sing the United States the national anthem? All right.
Let me mute the music first. Send us off, Fart.
Star Spangled Banner. Okay, 1 second. I'm very un-American. I don't know the lyric.
Oh, come on, man. You should watch hockey games.
Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming? That's all you're getting.
Aw.
I'm not doing the whole thing. I'm sorry.
Okay, fair enough. Yay. Okay, we've had our fun. Thank you again, guys, and let's go ahead and just raid someone since we got a good number of people here. I will grab someone interesting from science technology. Unless you guys potentially want me to raid somebody not doing programming and doing 3D modeling like we did that other time. Actually, there's another one doing learning to code JavaScript. Maybe we should just go for them. That's interesting. Yeah, let's do that. That sounds cool. Why not? Give him a raid here. Let's see, where's my dashboard? And it's set to that, so back to live. And we're going to go ahead, and once my thing loads, alright, this guy's actually got a good number, but we're going to get started on this. So, here we go. Oh, and thank you to Acho101 for the raid today. I almost completely forgot about that. Nuclear warheads, oh my gosh. No. But thank you guys. We'll see you guys tomorrow. See you guys later.